And so, like, while I don't pay Mr. Tate with my attention, I do appreciate the fact that, like, he is encouraging men to be men. I think it is a valuable thing, and it's not to say that I'm, a chauvinist or anything like that. Like, I have a freaking daughter, and, like, I want her to have every opportunity she possibly can in life. I also want her to have a strong, level-headed husband, if that's something that she decides that she wants in her life, So, Tate, I don't care about you, bro. You'll never see this anyways, but I appreciate that you're trying to get people to man up. Just don't be a douche. That's all.
What color is your Bugatti?
What's up, bud?
Hey, man. What's going on?
How you doing?
I think it's a dead horse that we've beaten many, many times, but I'm gonna say it. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god. My commute one way was 8 hours today.
There's no way.
Yeah, it's
there's no way.
I'll tell you, man, like, it really puts things into perspective as far as, like, how blessed we are to have the genes that we have. Like, getting out on an interstate with people just, like, kind of puts things into perspective, right? Like, we live in our own little bubbles that we've constructed with, like-minded people that inspire us, whatever. But when you get out on that interstate, you're surrounded by anybody and everybody, and seeing the decisions that people make with, like, a 6,000-pound vehicle, 9,000-pound vehicle, like, I don't know, man. It's like, it's really, I was reflecting on this on the ride up. It's like, I'm so fortunate to be who I am. I'm so fortunate to have the people in my life that I do, because, like, if these people were in my life, I couldn't take it, bro.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking about that because, like, my ride for work, it ain't but 25 minutes, but once it's not really even crossing the state line. It's once I get in that tourist, because we do kind of live close to the beach, and during the touristy times when they're all coming in, you get behind that traffic, and yeah, it's just like, I should have taken the back roads. I should have stayed on the 2-lane potholey roads. I'm gonna drive fast on, and around every curve there's a huge pine trees and whatever. I just went down the death trap.
Yeah. I was about to say I prefer 2-lane driving, but I don't, because inevitably I'll be doing like 9 over the speed limit. I mean, I don't ever speed. And then, like, I'll look up and there's somebody, like, right on my ass. Or even better, like,
Yeah.
like, somebody right on my bumper and, like, 4 cars directly ahead of me. Like, where do you think I'm going to go, dude?
Yeah. Especially now, now that time's kind of changing, and it's dark whenever I'm going to work, and it's dark whenever I get off of work. No one gets to ride behind me, because it doesn't matter if their low beams are on or not. Their lights are always in my rearview mirror, because everybody has the Carolina squat going on their truck, which I liked. I don't have necessarily a problem with it. Some of it's too much, but it's each his own.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the Carolina squat, but it's not about the Carolina squat itself. Now, given it does change, like, your weight distribution, you don't brake as well, you certainly don't handle as well, but it's more so the type of person that straight pipes a clapped out 1998 305. Like, it's that type of person that makes me doesn't like it. It's just, there's
Right.
If you need me to pay attention to you, I automatically don't like you and don't want to pay you my attention.
there's also like the there was one around here. It was like a 2000s model Tahoe, and I mean it was like that was the incline on it, you know.
Oh yeah.
And like just way too much. Like at what point does the way you want to modify your vehicle make it to where you can't drive effectively, and then you're putting other people's lives at risk?
Yep.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. I guess the only positive thing that I can say about the person that drives such a extremely modified, distastefully vehicle is that at least they let us know from literally a mile away what type of person they are. You know, at least there's that. We can take that as a positive.
Yeah.
What I want to know is,
Well,
like, you left lane. No, I'm not ready. I'm not ready because I've got a question. These left lane drivers, I need to know why. Why? Bro, I get it. Like, if somebody's tailgating me and I'm trying to pass somebody else, like, I'm not going to get out of your way. Sorry. But when there's nothing in the right lane, or you've got plenty of room, or you're just going so egregiously slow, did you miss the memo? You know, about the left lane? Like, the left lane's a passing lane? Why are you in the left lane? I need to know. Please tell me. Please. All right, now we can get into it. It's crazy to think, bro, this is it. This is the last chapter of this book. It's like, it's kind of bittersweet, man.
And I'm excited. I'm excited to be done. Moving on to the next one. Well, I guess we're not done, too, because I do want to go over the coda in this book.
The coda is like its own book in itself.
Yeah, but and he sums up everything, you know. It's a really good place to end it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I don't feel like Rule 12 is actually like an ending. You know, it's just Rule 12.
Yeah.
But Rule 12, pet a cat when you encounter one on the street.
He's really got me with this one, man. I am a domesticated animals type of guy, so like he hits home with this one, man, for sure. So, God, like, where do we even start with that? He talks about his dog Seiko, which I don't even remember how to spell that now. Quite a bit. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even. We're gonna get way in the weeds if we go down that road.
Yeah, and I mean I'm sure it's gonna come up in all the other parts of the chapter as well. I had some notes there about where he's talking about Typhel's studies. The main reason why he goes over that is just to like not exclude the dog lovers, and why he starts the chapter talking about dogs when the title's a cat and all that. But all of that is like the salt and pepper, right? It's not the meat of the chapter. It's not the meaning of the chapter, right? So
I do. All right. Wait though, because I do want to talk about the Typhel study. Okay, I think that's a super important one just to discuss in general, because like it touches on a pain point that we've discussed here on my side of things, right? And it's just an interesting study. I've got a note from page 336. Typhel found that his subjects displayed a marked preference for their own group members, rejecting an egalitarian distribution strategy and disproportionately rewarding those with whom they now identify. Listen, I prefer the company of blue collar people, like, without a doubt. I prefer like the company of some country folk, you know. But the reason why I wanted to touch on this is like being self-aware of that, right? Like, I don't know, man. It's just, the reason why I bring it up is like I think it's so easy to not be self-aware. and aware of like your own bias in life. And I'm not calling anybody a racist or anything like that, but I am saying like it's just important to, you know, in certain situations take a step back and be objective about things.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to gloss over it because, like I said, it wasn't the meat. It's like the potatoes. But 337, I underlined what I kind of thought was something important. There's a big paragraph right in the middle of 337. And I'm gonna start by reading the top, and then I'm gonna read the bottom. Typhoid studies demonstrated two things: first, that people are social; second, that people are antisocial. People are social because they like the members of their own group. People are antisocial because they don't like the members of other groups. Exactly why this has been the subject of continual debate. And I'm not going to read the rest of it, but I mean, it just kind of explains itself, right? And it was just like, if you want to know anything about Typhoid, that's what it is. It's about groups. People like their own group. People don't like groups from other people. So on and so forth. So then at the bottom, it's, he goes into why this is kind of a good thing and a bad thing throughout the paragraph, but y'all can read. If y'all don't have the book, pick it up. Perhaps people identify with groups at the flip of a coin because they deeply want to organize themselves, protect themselves, and still have some reasonable probability of climbing the dominance hierarchy. Then they favor their own group because favoring it helps it thrive, and climbing something that is failing is not a useful strategy. And that's kind of what I've been thinking about a lot. It's like the groups that I associate myself with. And I'm old enough now to understand that I don't want to be top dog on a pyramid. By no means am I saying that I don't feel like that I could train myself and have those qualities. That's a path that you have to take. But I just don't want that in my life. I don't want that amount of responsibility. I have people every day asking me, why don't you go back and get your master's degrees, get your F&P, become a doctor? I don't want that. I prefer the bedside nursing. And I'm happy where I'm at. But in that, I work at a really small hospital, and I've got some sinus stuff going on, so if you hear me sniffling the things, but I work at a small hospital, and I've worked at a larger one before, where like the person the phlebotomist comes up to get blood on your patient, and you don't recognize the phlebotomist, and then you start talking to them, and they're like, yeah, we've been here for 6 months. I don't like that. I like to know everybody and everything. But it's definitely, I actually found out that in the smaller, especially smaller, I won't say smaller hospitals, I just say it as a whole, in your smaller groups, it's harder to climb up. Because that's where I'm at. I'm trying to find things that I can do to be more helpful around the hospital as a whole. And there's also always like you can go and if I wanted to be trained and do like a 1 day at same day surgery, different departments and stuff like that. I don't want to quite do all that, but there's something I'm doing now. I'm getting trained to do midlines. Hopefully I'll be able to get that done before. So side note, I have 2 kids and my wife is pregnant. I haven't actually said that on the stream yet. I mean, on the podcast. Otis might have mentioned it one time, but yeah. So I'm in a thing right now to where it was supposed to be this month, but they just pushed it back to next month, and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be here for that. We'll see. Sign me up for it, but no, But just getting back to it, in your smaller groups, it's harder to climb up, and I'm sure that in your higher in your larger groups, groups also being mainly your jobs, what I'm kind of thinking of.
Yep.
I'm sure even in the larger ones, there's always more positions that open up, because that's the way it was at the other hospital. There was always new policies that were being being added, and eventually after 10, 15 policies were added, we were like, okay, we need to make at least one person to get involved in this to make sure that we make sure these policies. There was always something you could get up into, like a manager position, something like that. Where in the small hospitals, small groups, people get into manager, director positions and stuff, and they stay there for 15, 20 years.
Yep. Yeah, I've worked very small energy companies. I've worked intermediate, and now I'm working for...
you used to climb up on roofs and stuff.
Yeah. I've done roofing. I've installed solar systems on roofs. I've, done countless hours in attics and crawl spaces. Like, that's where I got my start. And now I'm working for this global utility company. It's like, I don't even know the number. I'm sure I've said the number at some point on one of these episodes. I don't even want to like stab at it anymore. It's something like 16,000 people or something like that work for this company. So the reason why I bring that up is something that you were saying a minute ago, which is like it's hard to move up in small groups. And bro, yes, that is very true. And even more so, like the glass ceiling that everybody has is so much more closer, and evident. Whereas like now I work for such a large company, I am such a small fish, whereas like at that intermediate company, I had an opportunity to take a director's position, before I left that company. So like, that's just one thing I wanted to mention. Like, there is kind of a sweet spot for, like you were saying a minute ago, proving your worth, right? Providing value to the team that you're on. And also that sweet spot is like you have the ability to do that in a decent sized team, but you've also, because you show that value, or actually given the opportunity to move up, into these better roles. And I've done management. I fly somewhat solo now, which I prefer. But the management isn't so bad. I'm just like, not really a people person. Like, I most enjoy the aspects of my job that don't involve any other people. So I didn't enjoy management as much. I did enjoy the people I worked with, but I just, that's beside the point. But what I was trying to say about management, is people become intimidated by these higher roles, right? And sure, like, you are taking on more responsibilities in some ways, but there is a trade-off there. Like, the way I would describe it is like moving up doesn't necessarily make things become exponentially harder. Things do become harder, but it's just one of those things where like you get into the groove of it. Like for most people in most situations, like, don't let that fear of the next step and how intimidating it is stop you from doing it, because odds are you'll figure it out, man.
I think that's one of the other things too. A good distinction for me is staying a nurse, and not wanting, if I do go back to school, I'm just looking to get my bachelor's, which doesn't really open. Like, honestly, it doesn't really open a ton more things for me to do in my hospital. But the next step up for like a manager position, you're like no longer doing bedside nursing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It really is. It's a completely different job. And one of the things I was thinking about, because everything has its positives and its negatives, right? When I was working for the bigger hospital system, whenever there was something happen that was kind of like, oh well, what do I do now? And I'll just give this as an easy like segue as to just like simple stuff that can happen but can leave you in a bind. Every patient in the hospital needs to have an IV, in case something happens, so we can push, drugs that you need to have when you're in a code or something like that. You never know when that's something like that's going to happen. So in the bigger hospital system, anytime we had an IV go bad, if you stick once or twice and you don't get it, you just call the IV team. And we had 2 or 3 nurses that was always there, and they would just come in and just start an IV for you. But that's a skill that every nurse needs to have, because you never know when something bad is going to happen. And all you have is a small bore IV, and you're trying to push a bunch of fluids, and a bunch of drugs at one time, and that IV blows. And that's one thing that I felt like even at that hospital, the other nurses were starting to come to me and say, hey, before I call the IV team, will you go and try to get an IV on this patient? And just the differences in like kind of how I do things and how other nurses would do things. We would have one nurse that was really, really good at doing IVs, but she would go in and spend 20 minutes with the patient to get an IV. I don't have time for that. I want to be able to sit down and chart. I want to be able to sit down and scroll on my phone. I won't lie about it anymore. I don't care. But, and I'd go in and within 5 minutes, I'd find a vein. That one looks decent. Let me keep looking. Find another one. All right, I have 2 choices. I'm going to stick this one. This one's straighter and it's longer, right? Stick your 20 gauge in there. You either hit it or you don't. Don't waste around. Don't hurt the patient trying to fish for it or anything. You either hit it or you don't. You can pull the IV back out and reattempt. Only do that 3 or 4 times. Don't hurt the patient. Be done with it. If you didn't get it, move to the next vein. Move to the next arm. 5 minutes. Be done with it. Get out. And because of that, creeps. I feel like I'm... Huh?
It gives me the creeps, man. IV? I hate even, talking about it.
It's just a needle.
Yeah, I know.
I do it all the time, so, for me, it's no big deal. But, there's definitely people you have like that. But, that's just how I've looked at it now, is just get in, do what you can, and get out. And because of that, and because my IV success rate has gone, I can tell that I'm doing better, right? People come to me now. They're like, hey, even at this small hospital where we don't have an IV team, if I'm at work and someone has an IV that goes bad, before they even stick, they come to me, and I'm like, listen, you have to develop this skill too. Right? In anything, you have to develop this skill too. You need to try. And if you can't get it, then you can come and watch me, and you can watch my process. But then you also have seasoned nurses who, this is just a really bad stick. They're dialysis patients, whatever. And they don't have that central line or midline inlet yet. We have to have an IV to give whatever. I'll stick them 4 or 5 times. You have to have it. So, yeah, fun times.
I think what you were saying a second ago is a decent segue into my next note, which is you were talking about these nurses that didn't necessarily possess the skill or possess the skill well enough. And I was saying a minute ago, we sometimes tend to get in our own way, right? I can't learn how to do that. I screw it up every time. That's you getting in your own way, right? That's you psyching yourself out. And that's just a small comparison, in comparison to what Peterson was talking about on page 343. He's talking to this client of his that her husband was going through a successful battle with cancer, but nonetheless a very long battle, and if I remember correctly, I think it metastasized. Anyways, let me read what he said there, and then we can kind of unpack that. I told her an old Jewish story, which I believe is a part of the commentary on the Torah. It begins with a question structured like a Zen koan. Imagine a being who is omniscient. It wouldn't be an episode without me stumbling over my words. Being who is omnipotent, or what is that word?
Omniscient.
That's the word. Omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. Jesus. What does that being lack? The answer: limitation. If you're already everything, everywhere, always, there's nowhere to go and nothing to be. Everything that could be already is, and everything that could have happened already has. And it is for this reason, so the story goes, that God created man. No limitations, no story. No story, no being. That idea has helped me deal with the terrible fragility of being. And then maybe a little bit further on, he says, there's something to be said for recognizing that existence and limitations are intrinsically linked. Yeah, man, like, it's just one of those big picture things that he's kind of unboxing for us. The kind of thing that maybe some of us do know, but some of us may never realize, like, there's supposed to be struggle in life. You look at any other species and what they have to go through in a single day just to get water and food, bro. Not even shelter, not even like vacation, hanging out, downtime. Like, you look at any other species and the struggle that they have to go through, like, no wonder we have suffering in our lives. It's an inevitable part of life. And I think that it's important to recognize that so you can be stronger for yourself and the people around you when those times come.
Yeah, I've had it's like 2 or 3 patients in the last 6 months, and then something personal that's been kind of happening. But it kind of relates to this. The person that Peterson, and if I remember correctly, this was the person he was talking to was the wife, and the husband. Yeah, the husband had the cancer. Yeah. So the cancer, from the story that I remember was that I just had this happen to a patient. They found out he had cancer. Went through chemo, radiation. They said, hey, the cancer's clear. Went back in for a checkup. Found out that it had metastasized. That's what I think the story was kind of about with Jordan Peterson, but that's the exact story of the patient that I've had in the last 6 months. He didn't know that it had metastasized yet, but he had started having some problems. Come through the emergency department, did an X-ray immediately. Oh yeah, that's cancer, and we can see that it's spread. But I don't want to talk too much about them. It's just, I don't know what it is, but if something were to happen and I get in a car wreck tomorrow and I die, like, I feel like I'm somewhat prepared as I can be, right? And this has nothing to do with, like, it has everything to do with, like, religion and being good there, but I don't want to take it there. I'm just talking about your personal everyday life, right? It's just kind of amazing to me that these people had basically a near-death experience. You get diagnosed with cancer. It's not a death sentence anymore, but people think that it is, right? And you have that experience and everything, and then you go through the treatment, and they're like, oh, no, we think you're going to make it. But then 6 months later, it's back, and it's metastasized. Like, once it metastasized, it's kind of in game. But all of a sudden you have to go through everything all over again. I don't. It goes back to where we are frail creatures, right? Not just physically, but mentally, spiritually. And that's one of the things I feel like you have to kind of prepare yourself for no matter what. You want to go to the gym, so physically, you're healthy. But it also gives you that mental fortitude of, hey, I don't feel the best today. I think I'm going to skip out on going to the gym. No, I'm going to go because that's what it is. It's doing the hard stuff. Just like I didn't always have to call someone in every time I had an IV that go bad. No, I'm going to get that experience while I can. So whenever there's a situation to where something as simple as this can actually save a life, hell yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm not gonna call someone to fix my problem every time I have a problem. I'm gonna do it myself.
Yep.
And I just feel like, you're gonna have weakness in life. There's nothing you can do about it. But what can you do to make yourself strong? Stronger in every aspect. But yeah, that's one of the things. And I really like the next part of the chapter. I don't know if you want to talk about
what you got.
I was just gonna say the next part he talks about Superman, and I was like, yes, he's talking about comic book characters.
That's your game, bud. You have had.
I know a lot about this.
I don't know anything about it.
Well, it's just like what he says. So this is 344, and at 345. I just want to kind of talk about it, and it's just like story writing in general. X-Men Superman originally, some people are gonna like crucify me for this because I'm probably gonna get some of the stuff wrong. But you have the first Superman was so strong that basically he could sneeze and blow the entire universe away. That's boring, right?
Right.
And so that's what he's talking about, and he means like relating it back to real life. If you're so strong that you have, no struggle in life, what's the point of life?
Right.
And he's just relating it to Superman. I actually haven't seen it yet, and it's one of the things I need to do. But the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League, I didn't even watch the first one because I was waiting for the Snyder cut. Excuse me, but everyone's kind of said that, like, yeah, once Superman gets there in the Snyder cut, like, it's the Superman that you expect. And the way that it goes in order and everything is that it's not he is the omnipotent being in the universe, but once he gets there and he does like start to wreak havoc and just starts fixing the problem, it's really good how they wrote it, that it's not overbearing. But just thinking about it in life, you're sitting there praying for an ex machina, deus ex machina, to win the lottery or whatever to fix your problem. It's, even if it does happen, it's going to be a curse, right?
Can be. I mean, if I'm still willing to take that risk if I win the lottery, but yeah.
I don't remember the statistics off the top of your head, but Google it right now. If you're watching this, pause the video and Google it. Something like 95% of all lottery winners are bankrupt within a year or two afterwards. And it goes to show that, like, their problem wasn't actually money. Their problem was finances, like how to appropriate, where to put your money at and stuff like that.
I'd like to think that I would hire a financial advisor like on day 2, but yeah, maybe I wouldn't. Like that's one of the things, man. Like, I don't know. I did have a decent quote that tied together what we were talking about a minute ago on 345. I guess from that same area. And I don't want to get us away from Superman. If you want to still talk about your boy,
No, I mean, I have one thing that's kind of underlined, and this is where he's talking about, and I'm gonna read it because it's probably close to the same thing that you're talking about. Before I get into it, I want to exaggerate a little bit longer. Dr. Peterson starts talking about how having that Deus Ex Machina in reading is like really bad writing style.
Yep.
And just completely unfulfilling for your readers or your viewers. And I'm 100% down with that. Like, being a fan of some of the fantasy stuff, I hate it. But 345, kind of near the bottom of the page there, he's kind of talking about Superman's problem, to where he could just get out of anything. But down there at the bottom, a superhero who can do anything turns out to be no hero at all. He's nothing specific, so he's nothing. He has nothing to strive against, so he can't be admirable. Being of any reasonable sort appears to require limitation. Perhaps this is because being requires becoming, as well as mere static existence, and to become is to become something more, or at least something different, that is only possible for something limited.
Yep. That was the quote for sure. For sure. I mean, that's just applicable to so many different things in your life. Like, sure, it's about life in general, but even, compartmentalize that to your career, or just making a difference with your life, like taking advantage of, the time that you have, understanding that is limited, that you are a limited being, and because of that, you need to see what you can do. Like, I don't know, man. It's, if nothing else, like with all the flack that Jordan Peterson takes for, his opinions on things, like, I don't really care about that. It's only frustrating to me because, like, it gets in the way of people picking this book up and just kind of like having a little refresher with life, sitting down and like gaining the perspective of somebody that somehow has been able to take a step back from life and provide us these interesting perspectives on things that we might partially know or things that we should know. And I don't know, man. It's just like that, man. That it's refreshing to hear this type of stuff, to be able to sit down and discuss these types of things with other people, because, like, how often do you get to do that, with the people that are around you? How often is that even appropriate? I don't know. I don't know. I appreciate this book.
Well, you're right there on it. Before I read this book, even like in school and stuff, like I don't know how to study. Who knows how to study? Anyway, all the reading that I had done was fictional, fantasy based, whatever you want to talk, entertainment, right?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, bam, and it's like you read the first chapter, and he's talking about lobsters, and you're like, wait, just keep giving it. Maybe it's just kind of slow or something. But like, it's somewhat interesting, and you keep reading it, and then you put the book down, right? And you spend some time just thinking about it, and you're like, oh, this is a different kind of reading.
Yep.
It is for the betterment of yourself. And you don't have to agree with everything, but you at least need to take the time, sorry. you don't have to agree with everything, but you at least need to take the time to be like, oh yeah, let's think about this for a minute, you know.
Yep.
Because I was just thinking about this, the whole Tate brothers, and I don't really want to talk about him too awful much because there's so much crap that's going on with him. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, of course, everybody's heard of Andrew, right? I assume that's who you're talking about. I didn't even know there was a brother.
Yeah. Yeah, his brother's Tristan. He's not so much on the social media stuff that I've seen, but, and I'm not going to say whether they're right or wrong, but the thing is for the most part, you're only getting like your little TikTok videos about him and this, that, and the other. And people can take any 60 seconds from anything and make it sound bad.
Sure.
Not saying that the context that they were saying it sound good. It was meant to be good. I don't know. I haven't looked into it. I honestly don't care to. But at the same time, it's one of those things to where once they got the ban, like 2 days later, my social media was kind of filled with more of the positive stuff that they were saying. And I'm like, oh, where was all this stuff? You know? And like, that's just what I'm saying is you take everything with a grain of salt. At least listen to it.
Sure. I mean, and Andrew Tate's, illegitimate son is not gonna talk to my daughter the way that some of these clips I've seen have talked about women. I'll just say that much. Like,
right, and I'm straightforward. Like, if my son was living in a mansion and had 6 girlfriends, like I would be like, hey, listen, man, don't do that. But I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not saying it one way or the other. The point that I was saying isn't about the Tate and what he has to say. I'm just saying that at first it was filled with a bunch of negative stuff, and then all of a sudden I saw some things that I actually kind of agreed with.
Yeah, and that's what I basically what I was getting to is like, I don't like the guy, right? Like, that's my main message about the guy is like, don't be a douchebag. Just don't be a douchebag. With that said, he has said some things that I've been like, you know what, bro? That makes a lot of sense.
So this is a really good example, and and the only reason why I'm continuing talking about it is because you can apply this to everything in life, right? With our small monkey brains, only be able to absorb 60 seconds of content at a time before we're no longer satisfied and we have to swipe to the next video. There was a video that I had seen, and he was talking about if his son was a geek and was a nerd and liked video games and stuff, that he would fight him to the death or something like that. I don't agree with that. Everybody has their own stuff in life that they like to do. But then after he got banned and I started seeing some of the other positive things, it was that same exact quote, but at the end he starts laughing and he was like, that was a little strict. I probably shouldn't have said it like that. And like, you could tell that, oh wait, that was like a joke, Yeah. Like a lot of information was cut out of the one that I watched first, and that's just what I mean. Don't know if Andrew Tate's a good guy. Don't know if he's a good guy, bad guy. I could care less. More stuff going on in my life. Yep.
Well, all right.
Important things going on in my life.
I think he probably is a valuable figure because, like, I do feel like, we're kind of being, there's been all this talk about toxic masculinity, right? And how negative that is. And sure, there's some aspects of that, like not going to the doctor, not asking for help in certain situations, not, confronting the emotional side of you and understanding that, like, those are all bad sides of quote-unquote toxic masculinity. But on the other side, when it comes to people like Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate, we need strong men. And like you take a look around, and I'm not going to regurgitate the analogy, but it's weak times create strong men make good times create weak men. Like, I guess I did pretty much just regurgitate the idea, even though I just said I wasn't going to. But I would say, given that we are somehow finding ourselves back in the Cold War, that it's time for some strong men, because I certainly don't want to spend too much time in the bad time and want to get back to the good time. And so, like, while I don't pay Mr. Tate with my attention, I do appreciate the fact that, like, he is encouraging men to be men. I think it is a valuable thing, and it's not to say that I'm, a chauvinist or anything like that. Like, I have a freaking daughter, and like, I want her to have every opportunity she possibly can in life. I also want her to have a strong, level-headed husband, if that's something that she decides that she wants in her life, So, Tate, I don't care about you, bro. You'll never see this anyways, but I appreciate that you're trying to get people to man up. Just don't be a douche. That's all.
What color is your Bugatti?
That's a fair one. Hey, all right, listen. I don't give a shit about your Bugatti, bro. Like, you can't see around my 350. You can't see around it.
Okay.
And, like, I can see well over your Bugatti, and that's all I really care about. My truck's got all the torque, all the horses, all the horse torques that I need. I don't give a shit about your Bugatti. Yeah, anyways. Page 346. I've got a quote for you here. Because this is like, this is a decent segue, right? Like, because on the opposite side of strong men are these absolute turds that just hate life, right? Like, everything is negative in life. Like, people are terrible. Everything's terrible. Page 346. Hating life, despising life, even for the genuine pain that it inflicts, merely serves to make life worse, unbearably worse. Like, that is the weak man. That is how we find ourselves in situations like the current situation we're in now as a society, and it's, again, one of those things that I appreciate about the book, that hopefully, like, 1 out of every 10 readers reads that and then, like, enters this small period of self-reflection of, like, oh, wow. Yeah, I guess maybe if I am just kind of dwelling on all the negative things all the time, it's only going to make my life worse. Why would I see anything good in my life?
Right.
Right.
Sorry, I'm trying to find where you read that at, because 346 goes to that dark place.
What do you mean?
Well, 346 is where he starts talking about the other side of instead of your deus ex machina, like something coming around and just saving you all the time. It's the other thing. He starts talking about the Columbine boys and
Yep.
Those dark thoughts where it's and then how could a good God allow such a world as this to exist, and et cetera, and hating life.
And bro, I've been there. Like, all of that.
Well, I think it goes back to where earlier in the book Peterson was kind of saying, you have to have a dark side inside of you that understands that you are capable of walking into work one day and looking at your boss and going, you know what, screw you, screw this job, I'm done. Where that's one of the other things I kind of see now is if you're paid minimum wage, act like a minimum wage.
Is that a thing? Is that a meme?
And like, yeah, it's not really a meme. It's like a movement. It's like, it's just, just quit your job, just walk off your job, You know, if you're gonna, you know, if you're paid minimum wage, act like a minimum wage worker. When I'm just like, yeah, but you're not screwing over that corporation. You're not screwing over that manager. None of them care. You're screwing over the other minimum wage worker beside you. Is what you're doing.
Yep. Or the customer that worked hard for their money that's paying for whatever service you're providing.
Right. But I'm thinking more of like McDonald's.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Not saying to screw the customer. Yeah, I'm not saying like screw the customer. But at the same time, I'm more of like, you know, you're part of a team regardless.
Yep.
And if you want to exit the team, just give a 2 weeks notice. It's as simple as that.
Yep. Where are
I mean,
all
if you
the
have
workers,
to handwrite it,
like,
I don't know.
Where'd everybody go?
I don't know. I don't want to. It's because we definitely have a nursing shortage. And even before the pandemic, I know a lot of your service industries was. I said service industries. A lot of your blue collar, you know, electricians, stuff like that. No one was wanting to get into that because I know. Well, me and you grew up, we were told there was no money in that kind of work anymore.
Yep.
So no one went for those kinds of jobs anymore, right?
Yep.
I wish I would have taken a shop class, but...
Yeah, and that's what I was getting ready to say, too, is like we were more so told that if we didn't go to school, we weren't going to amount to anything. And in fact, like, they pointed to the construction workers and said, you don't want to become that, do you? And now here I am, a construction worker, like, super happy with my life. You know, it's the best screw up I ever made.
I wish I would have taken shop class because I just built a duck coop.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a little bit different from a chicken coop because chickens you won't. I don't know why I'm explaining the difference between a duck coop and a chicken coop. But we're going to go there. That's the kind of exciting podcast talking we're going to have here. But chickens want like a box to lay their eggs in. Ducks don't really care about that. It's just open floor plan. And from what we looked and understood, they just want 4 square feet of area to be able to lay their eggs. So if you have 6 female ducks, you want 48 square feet. So I just built like a 6 foot by 4 foot rectangle box, and I just did it like I think it was 4 feet high. Might have been 3.5. I don't remember. But I've never built any kind of building whatsoever, but because I've watched freaking TikTok videos on whatever, like I framed it like a house using 2x4s, and it's probably the most overbuilt, poorly built duck house. But like I did it, you know.
That's
so
such
like
a
whatever.
good feeling. I even if whatever I built was a piece of crap, I still like just taking a minute to stand there and go, I made that. You know, that was nothing, and then I made it into something. And yeah, cuss at it a lot, mainly along the way.
Yeah, cuss at it. Because like I hit my hand with the hammer, like at my finger, like I screwed most everything with the like I wasn't even nailing a nail. I was just trying to like tap something in place, a piece of a 2x4 or something into place. And something happened, and I needed to hit it hard, and I just straight up hit my finger right here, and it still hurts, and like whatever. So you get done, and you just cuss at it and get all your frustrations out and everything, and then you're like, "Dang, I did a really good job. Like I even painted it.
Oh,
like I did everything.
That.
I painted it." But yeah, it's just fun, dude, and like, but that's, I mean, it all. I feel like we say this all the time, but it all just comes full circle. It's one of those things to where I don't know what I'm doing, but someone's going to give me, and this is actually what happened. One of my friends is building a house, and I've been helping him mow his yard because he doesn't have a lawnmower yet. So I've been helping him with that, and he's been paying me a little bit and whatever. And he was just like, "Hey, the builders are done with all these 2x4s and 2x6s. If you need them for anything, please get them out of my yard." So went over there and loaded it up with a bunch of free lumber because wood's expensive right now, and hauled them to my house.
I could have used that for sure.
Yep.
I'm just about at the point of building a pier out of pallets. Like, that's where I'm at right now, because I just cannot stomach the cost of building a dock right now.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you there. Buy a bunch of 55-gallon drums, plastic drums, and make a floating pier.
Yeah, I've thought about it, but like the amount of work that I would have to put into something half-assed, I'd rather just do it right, like get it permitted and all that if I'm going that far. That's why I said pallets. Like, we've got a boat ramp across from the house where I can access the water. I just want to be able to walk out on my property to the water's edge, and right now that's really difficult. You know, so I will permit a dock at some point, and I'll do it right at some point, but right now I just want to be able to walk out there.
Yeah,
man, listen, we could probably do another. I would be willing to bet we could probably do another 2 hours on chapter 12, but I've got a busy day full of important meetings tomorrow, and really, like, we can't cover everything that we want to cover in these episodes, right? So, like, there's two things here. Number one, like, I want to talk about, you know, one like piece of advice that Peterson gives in a particular situation here in a second, and just want to acknowledge, like, how intimate chapter 12 really is. You know, like, for Peterson to really give you a window into his life, what his personal life is like, and then, you know, that's only a small window of everything that, you know, even he goes through. It's just, it's interesting to, like, think about, you know, the types of struggles Dr. Peterson went through, especially with his daughter. Like, now having my daughter here, like, it's some scary stuff, man. It's some heavy stuff. The things that they had to go through with their daughter, these health issues. But on the other side of that, like, look at, you know, how intelligent this man is, how well thought this man is, how successful this man is now, despite, you know, the same type of struggles that you and I have. You know, it's inspiring, and I'm not saying that I will ever be as smart as him, but still, like, in my own capacity, in my own limitations, there's so much more I can do with this life. But I can go ahead and get into that quote from page 350 if you want. And I know you wanted to cover some stuff in Coda, which we can.
We'll do that later. Yeah. I hate to do this, but can I have like 2 minutes to, like, blow my nose and get the snot out and go to the bathroom?
Okay. Oh, man. Yeah, so, yeah, I don't know. I appreciate, you know, the vulnerability that Peterson gave us here in this last chapter. And then, like, I think Peterson's kind of careful on not giving advice, you know, but every once in a while he kind of sprinkles it in this book, right? And on page 350, it doesn't really have much to do with anything that we've been talking about. Well, I guess it does, because basically what he's talking about is, like, crisis management or managing a situation, like having a bipolar family member that you need to support, things like that. And so I'll read basically what he said on 350, or I'll stumble through it like I always do. So again, talking about, like, managing a crisis. Set aside some time to talk and think about the illness or other crisis and how it should be managed every day. Do not talk, or think about it otherwise. If you do not limit its effects, you will become exhausted and everything will spiral into the ground. This is not helpful. Conserve your strength. You're in a war, not a battle, and a war is composed of many battles. That's something important to remember, right? Like, there are good times and there are bad, and like when you're in the good times, bro, the bad times are coming, and when you're in the bad times, one of my grandmother's favorite sayings was, "This too shall pass," right? Like, the good times are coming around again. There's many battles in life, right? So where was I? Composed of many battles. You must stay functional through all of them. When worries associated with the crisis arise at other times, remind yourself that you will think them through during your scheduled period. This usually works. The part of your brain that generates anxiety are more interested in the fact that there is a plan than the details in the plan. Don't schedule your time to think in the evening or at night. Then you won't be able to sleep. If you can't sleep, then everything will rapidly go downhill. So, like, that's a very consolidated, solid piece of advice that he gives on how to manage some serious situations. And like, it's one thing to read it and another to put it in practice. But, even understanding these kind of concepts are, the first step in the right direction. And there are certainly some situations in my life where this would be applicable. There's certainly deferred maintenance on some very major situations in my life that could have been, we could be so much further along now as a family unit if we would have adopted this type of practice, and actually addressed the situation on scheduled times. And then, like, the rest of the time, it's not nearly as big of a deal. It's not nearly as deflating because we know that we have this plan on how we're going to address these things. I don't know. I just found that super valuable. And we can talk about anything else in chapter 12 that you want to, but I think that's a good stopping point, and I've got a few notes on Coda if you want to go there. Because I'll tell you guys, Coda is a solid ending to this book.
I want to do one other thing. It's not the ending of the chapter, but I feel like it sums everything else up a little bit more. It's the bottom of 351, so it's right after what you were reading. Wish upon a star and then act properly in accordance with that aim. Once you are aligned with the heavens, you can concentrate on the day. Be careful. Put the things you can control in order, repair what is in disorder, and make what is already good better. It is possible that you can manage if you are careful. People are very tough. People can survive through much pain and loss, but to persevere, they must be the good in being. And if they lose that, they are truly lost. And I just thought, that's the thing is wish upon that star, but you have to act, right? Yep. It's the same thing as, in my opinion, playing the lottery and then winning it. You have to then act like you don't act like someone who's won the lottery, right? Act like someone who's got $1 million. And invest it correctly. Get someone who knows what they're doing, a financial advisor or whatever. That's the same thing as what it's saying there. Is just act accordingly.
Yep.
Prepare.
Yep. It's called 12 Rules for Life for a reason, right? Like, this is a big picture book that touches on a lot of aspects of life that we all experience but don't necessarily think about.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's funny, this book as a whole, and listen to our podcast, but at the same time read this book, because we didn't even get on the crux of what this chapter is and everything that was going on with his daughter. And then the final segment of the chapter we're not even going to go over, which is just basically, to put it in a sentence, if you have a moment, any moment during the day where you can find a reprieve from your day-to-day life and have a peaceful moment, do it.
Yeah. Easier said than done.
But yeah, are you wanting to get in? Yeah. Are you
We
wanting
can
to do Coda tonight?
We can do Coda. I mean, we can do it either
Okay.
a part of this episode, or if you want to break it off into another episode, we can do it at another time.
We can do it another time, I think, because I haven't even underlined Coda. I hate to say that, but
no, that's fine. That's fine. I only had like 3 notes from Coda because like I was saying, it's its own book in itself. Like it's a solid chapter for sure. But that's it for today. We will be back to discuss Coda, and congratulations on getting through this book with us, man. It's definitely a heavy lift, and I really am looking forward to going back through it again at some point, because it's just one of those books that you probably need to read about 10 times to absorb 30% of the value that's in this book. All right, folks. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you on the next one.